Welcome in to this penultimate edition of the regular season of MISL Weekly. My name's Nicholas Murray. As always, very pleased to be joined by Chris Economides. Chris, how are you doing? How was your weekend?
What does penultimate mean, Nicholas? Does it mean last one?
Second to last.
Second to last, okay.
Ultimate is last, penultimate is second to last.
Okay, yeah, you learn something new every day.
Well, you should know this. This is your heritage. This is Latin and Greek.
Oh, I'm not into ancient Greek. But no, my weekend was great. A lot of exciting games to talk about. Let's get the ball rolling.
Well, let's get the ball rolling with our new MISL division leader, the Baltimore Blast, who are now a half game up on the Milwaukee Wave after taking 3 wins in 3 days. Incredibly impressively, no matter who the opposition was. If you roll through three games in basically the course of about, I would say, not even 72 hours, maybe close to 60 hours. That was very, very impressive from the Blasters this week. Tony Donatelli with 12 points over the course of the games. Mike Lookingland solid as ever. The Blast are looking as though they're in tip-top form as they enter the playoffs.
You know what? When Kevin Healy and I were doing the schedule early on in the year before we released the schedule, and we came to this weekend, he said, "Look, I really want those that Friday and Saturday home dates." I said, "Well, we need to get that Rochester game in there." And when he did it, I said, "You know what? This is old school," and it was great to see, where they played 3 games in 3 days, 3 wins. Let's shoot the thing out the window about that you can't play back to back. You can play 3 in 3 days here. So, with all kidding aside, great job by the Blast. 3 wins, Pennsylvania, an always very tough Syracuse team, and then an always very tough venue to play in before almost 9,000 fans in Rochester. You got to give them credit.
The thing that was most interesting to me, as we talked about this a little bit last week, is would they be creative as far as the lineups that they put out? And to me, it looked like every single night it was the same guys putting in the minutes, putting in the production. Lookingland, Donatelli, Lucas Roque, Lucio Gonzaga. These were the guys that really came to the forefront in each of the 3 games and really impressed. And then the only place where we really saw it altered was Troy Hernandez comes in, steps in, plays 2 excellent games with William Van Zela taking the Saturday night shift.
I was talking about Kevin Healy. You really got to give Danny Kelly the credit here. Danny's done an unbelievable job. He's rounded this team into top playoff form here as we head down the home stretch. He's got them playing as well as they've played all year long. Yeah. And, you got to give Danny a lot of kudos here.
Biggest win, as we mentioned, was the Saturday night game against the Syracuse Silver Knights. And that was, for those of us that got to see it, that was an outstanding game. I was actually very surprised to see Syracuse come out as flat as they did, let Baltimore get that early 4-0 advantage, which it doesn't seem like much. But if you're trying to come back against the Baltimore Blast just from a 2-goal deficit, that's a hard thing to do. And Syracuse got close. They got within a point 3 separate occasions. Couldn't quite find that go-ahead goal to give themselves the upper hand and put a little bit of pressure on the Blast to make a comeback.
Syracuse has beaten Baltimore already this year, so I don't think there's any psychological, win to be won here. But again, the tone every time that they play them is they're always so close. They're always so close. We're talking about a potential first-round playoff matchup here.
We are.
And I think psychologically, these near misses, may play more into it than we're alluding to here. But again, very, very close games all year long. The Silver Knights have beaten Baltimore. So again, they know that they're in their own minds that they can beat them. It should be a very interesting final week of the season to see how things do end up here.
And the reason that is now a legitimately potential first-round matchup is because, in part, of Sunday afternoon's game between the Missouri Comets and the Milwaukee Wave. Missouri, we talk about Baltimore's 3 games in about a 60-hour span. Missouri did the same thing. They had 2 games in effectively the space of 17 hours, won an absolutely helter-skelter game against St. Louis on Saturday night, and then immediately shipped up to Milwaukee, and went and handed the Wave not just their third loss of the season, but the third defeat at the hands of the Comets this season. It was remarkably impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri's done an excellent job there also. A gunslinging affair Saturday night in Kansas City. 26-21, I believe, was the final score.
Absolutely.
It's like a basketball
old
score.
School. You talk about old school earlier. That was like old school 1970s high-scoring MISL right there.
And then then they go into Milwaukee, who again they've handed the Wave their only 3 losses of the season. So certainly, the Comets know that they can play with and beat the Wave. Again, another potential first-round matchup here. It really is. I've said it in the past, and I'm trying to be politically correct in the past, but I think it truly is wide open this year with any team that gets hot at the right time. And you look at what Baltimore's doing. You look how tough Syracuse has played. You see what Missouri can do, which again, I mean, I've used the term "scary good" in the past. It really is wide open this year.
You know what it reminds me of? You remember the movie Any Given Sunday? I remember the inches speech that Al Pacino gives in the locker room. That's what we're looking at, I think, as we approach the MISL playoffs, because it is going to be a matter of inches. It's going to be who executes correctly, who hits the post, who sneaks it inside, who gets the lucky deflection. Those are the things that may end up deciding games when we go into the playoffs 2 weeks from now.
I'm a firm believer in that you make your own breaks. But I think in this instance, the teams are that close where, a break here and there, a questionable call, which we always get those, over the course of a season and the playoffs.
We get questionable calls as far as, I believe there are some rather opinionated people behind benches and people behind the glass in the stands that make sure that those calls are always questioned.
Well, no, but I again, unlike in years past where like you knew, okay, it's going to be this and that, and it's just a formality of playing, and let's get to the final here. I think both semifinal series, whomever ends up playing whom,
exactly,
is going to be a toss-up, and then obviously the winners of those 2 semifinal series. You can flip a coin to see who's going to win the whole thing this year.
Let's talk a little bit about the Wave quickly, because obviously they put in a very nice professional performance on the road against St. Louis on Friday night. Very nice 20-9 win. But then for them to lose a third time to the Comets this season, the first time they've lost at home, lost their 19-game regular season home winning streak in the process. Is there a small seed of doubt maybe being placed here that maybe this isn't the matchup? And it really puts an emphasis on them to make sure they win out and get that number 1 seed this weekend.
Oh, a small seed? No, I'd say it's a pretty big seed. It's a tree-sized seed, if you ask me. Yeah, I mean, if you look at what's transpired between those 2 teams the last year and a half, obviously the Comets' huge win in the playoffs last year in stunning fashion. Their 3 wins this year. But somehow, some way, Keith Tozer always finds a way.
Yeah.
Keith will, he's the psychological genius. He always has his teams ready. He'll make the adjustments that he has to make. But again, going back to your original question, is there a shadow of doubt or planting a seed? Absolutely. Yeah, I think the Comets, be honest here, I think have owned the Wave this year. So I think they have to make some adjustments. If there's any way they can do it, it's Keith Tozer.
Well, to talk more about that matchup and to talk more about their outstanding weekend, we got the chance to talk with the Missouri Comets Lucas Rodriguez, and that interview will be coming up just after this break. Well, I'm very pleased to be joined now by the Missouri Comets Lucas Rodriguez. Lucas, congratulations on the 2 wins this weekend.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on the show.
Obviously, it was a very tough situation for you guys. You play back-to-back, first at home against St. Louis on Saturday night, then Sunday afternoon in Milwaukee. How are you guys able to pull these 2 wins out?
Well, I think, like you said, it's a tough weekend. I think we believed in the coaching staff had a plan for us for the weekend. I think the guys, the team, we came out prepared to work hard, and I think that was the theme of the weekend, was just believing what coaches says and sets up for us to do as a team. And everybody showed up with the willingness to work hard, and I think it demonstrated on the field. Over the weekend, we had a tough game against St. Louis, and we were able to still come out on top. And then, obviously the next day going to Milwaukee. Anytime you play Milwaukee, whether you have a day off or not, it's always going to be a hard game. They have a really good team, and I think we came prepared to play the game, and we were able to come out on top. But at the same time, I think we're well aware of the fact that it could have gone either way, and that we haven't done anything yet.
What did it mean to you personally to be able to show off your creativity? You had 6 assists over the weekend, 3 in each game, including being able to help out Leo Gibson on that 3-pointer that effectively clinched the game for you guys against the Ambush on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always nice to get recognized, but I have to admit that if it wasn't for my teammates, being able to play a hard game and either receive the end of my pass or getting me the ball in the first place, I wouldn't be able to do anything. So I think it's just, like I said earlier, I think it's a team. The team performed really well. I mean, Danny made some great saves in the weekend. Leo had a great game. I mean, everybody came out and played really good games, and I was just glad that we were able to win and as a team,
Leo's obviously having a terrific season. He leads the league in points. What's it been like to see what he's been able to do this season playing alongside him?
Well, I'm not surprised. I've been with Leo and even guys like Bashir as well for the past 4 years, and their work ethic is really outstanding. They've been working hard all season. Every season it's been the same thing, and I think it was just a matter of time. That I think is very well deserved. The accomplishments that they are achieving this season, and I think the greatest thing about guys like Leo Gibson, for example, is the fact that he had to be thrown in so many different positions throughout different seasons, and he's never even complained once, and it's always that guy that will roll up the sleeves and go to work. And so I think for me it's a pleasure to be on the field with a lot of the guys on this team that come in every day, in and out, working hard. And I think Leo is a great example, and we're very happy for him, the fact that he's helping us try to achieve our goal on winning a championship this year, hopefully.
Your win on Sunday against Milwaukee kind of set things up interestingly for you guys for this weekend, where if you win your final 2 games, it would set up a matchup, likely set up a matchup with the Wave in the semifinals. With the way that you guys have been able to compete against them, is that what you're looking to do, especially with the final game of the season on Sunday?
I think for me personally, I don't think it really matters to us who we play in the semifinal, if it's the Blast or the Wave or Syracuse. I think we just have to try to keep improving game by game so that we are ready when the playoffs come around, and try to do better than we did last year. I think everybody on this team understands that we have a job to do and we have a goal, and that is to do better than last year. And, once you get to the playoffs, everybody's going to play hard. Milwaukee has a great team. It's not going to be easy. Baltimore, same thing. Even Syracuse is going to put up a great fight. They have a really good team this year. And so I think at the end of the day, for us, at least for me, it doesn't matter if you play Real Madrid or Milwaukee Wave or anybody. You just have to come prepared to play and do the best you can and hope that you can come out on top at the end of the day. So I think regardless, it's going to be a tough game. So to me, I don't have a preference. Like I said, I don't feel like we have done anything yet. And so as long as we can get to the final and win it, I don't think it matters to me who we play.
Obviously, you guys went to the championship game last season. You fell to the Baltimore Blast. What would it mean to go back for the team to win it this year?
I think it'll be a great accomplishment. I think a lot of people will be happy But at the same time, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think for us as a team, whether we perform well or not at that final, I think we never thought that we were not that we were a worse team than any of the teams during the season. And so for us to be able to get back to the championship, and even if we have to play against Baltimore one more time, I think we're still we feel like we can beat anybody any given day. The question is, are we gonna be able to, wake up that morning and play as hard as we can and win the game? So it's like we have this like a depth. For me personally, I think it'll be interesting, but at the end of the day, we still have something to prove to the city of Kansas City and to the fans and to the ownership and the coaching staff and to us teammates and players. I think we deserve to try to win the championship if we can.
Well, Lucas, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Good luck here in the final weekend of the regular season, and we're definitely looking forward to seeing what you guys can do in the playoffs.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Well, obviously very interesting to hear from Lucas Rodriguez there. Yeah, absolutely outstanding weekend for not just himself, but the Comets overall. The thing that was most interesting to me about that conversation, though, was the idea that the Comets, they don't care who they play. The numbers wouldn't seem to back that up. They've obviously struggled against the Blast. They struggled in the championship series last year. They struggled in both of their meetings this season, whereas they have fared very, very well against the Wave. It seems to me that this Sunday's game is one that the Comets would really like to win, because there is that belief, that I think, within that room that the Wave are a good matchup for that team. 2
points for Nicholas. Obviously, he's going to say that because he's not going to say, I would much rather play the Wave, because then you can bet your last nickel that, head coach Keith Tozer is going to have that interview on his, in his boombox in the locker room, saying, look, this guy wants to play you guys.
He'll have it printed out in 72-inch font.
Now, realistically, I think, that the Comets, I think I've used the term scary good this year. I think that this is a team that if you want to try and play run and gun, they've got the, with Vahid Asinpour, with Leo Gibson, with, the host of players that they have, they can play that style of game with you. They've got one of the marquee goalkeepers in Danny Waltman in the league. They're solid defensively, so they can play that style. So I think what Lucas is saying makes sense, because, again, I think that they can play any style that you want to play. And they've, obviously shown that they can beat and stay with all the top teams in the league.
Well, that game is obviously the big one this Sunday. We've got 3 games on Sunday to round out the regular season. This is, to me, a pressure game for the Wave as well, because they're at home. They want to get a little bit of positive momentum. I think they definitely want to beat the Comets. And with the Blast playing the Raw, they may have to win that game to get the number 1 seed in what would likely be a matchup with Syracuse in the semifinals. Is this? I mean, it's not a must-win, but is it important for the Wave to win this game? As important for the Comets?
I think more so for the Wave, to be honest with you. I think psychologically, they've been at the top of the table all year long. To lose that, on the last week of the season, I think would be it would be psychologically deflating to the Wave. So I don't think it's gonna. It would also obviously have a bearing as to what the pecking order for hosting the finals would be. I know that in seeing the team's dates, that obviously both teams want to play the second game at home in case there is a mini game.
Yeah.
So obviously, that plays into the whole factor. So yeah, I think the pressure is squarely on Milwaukee. They've got to take care of business by beating both Missouri and St. Louis.
Now, Milwaukee plays St. Louis the night before. They play Saturday night. We got news this week from the Ambush that they will return with Darryl Duran as their head coach again for their second season. They have an opportunity to play a spoiler here, which they almost did for the Comets on last Saturday night. With guys that they've got they're playing a little bit for their place on the team next year, I think, in these final 2 games of the season. Do you see them kind of forcing an upset, creating a surprise, throwing a spanner in the works for either the Comets or the Wave in their matchups this weekend?
Well, I know that in talking to Andrew Haynes, the St. Louis owner, they're expecting a really, really big crowd. I think they're doing a retro
night. Yep.
Yeah, on Thursday night for their home finale. Anytime you get, and I've been there, you get 7,000-8,000 people in that building, and it's rocking in there. So obviously there's going to be a lot of nostalgia. The players are going to be pumped up. They played a heck of a game in Missouri last week, so that's a very realistic, winnable situation for those guys. The Wave. Again, I'm sure that it's all about psychological effect going into the playoffs, and I think the Wave need to win I think they have to win the last 2 games in order for them to host, to have the home field throughout the playoffs. So, a lot of things to play for the last week of the season.
The other game on Sunday, aside from Missouri, Milwaukee, and Baltimore, Pennsylvania, is a game that doesn't technically mean anything. But to the fan bases of the Rochester Lancers and Syracuse Silver Knights means a heck of a lot. This game was bad-tempered last time around. Syracuse Silver Knights came out with the victory. It clinched their place in the playoffs. Are you going to be on edge watching this one on Sunday afternoon?
Oh, I'm not going to be on edge, but I told you. I've said it all along. These 2 teams could be playing, in a meaningless game, which in all essence, this is a meaningless game. But it's going to be a war out there. These 2 teams do not like each other. Let's be perfectly honest here. It's the I-90 rivalry.
And there are certain players on these 2 teams.
Last game you had some things happen between Nelson Santana and Mauricio Salas. Those aren't forgotten. There's been a rivalry ever since these teams both came into the league together as expansion brethren in 2011. You can say the games mean nothing, but be some of those players, and I'm sure that both teams want to go out with a win.
Who are your players to watch this weekend? There's a lot of interesting action. I think that the focus is probably going to be principally on the Midwest. Who are the guys that you're looking to step up and put in a big performance this weekend?
Well, let's start off with Missouri. I'm not sure if Vahid Asadpour is due back or not, but I think he makes even though they played well, one without him in Milwaukee, obviously Vahid makes a huge difference to the Comets. Leo Gibson, who I believe right now is the league's leading scorer. It'll be interesting to see how that ends up. From a Milwaukee standpoint, I was disappointed in Marcio Uliete's play last week, to be honest with you. I think him being a past MVP and the talented player that he is, I think that for the Wave to have a real shot and a run in the playoffs here, he's going to have to step to the forefront. Obviously from a Rochester and from a Syracuse perspective, is this Doug Miller's final game?
Could be.
What a great professional he's been. Indoor, outdoor. What a storied career. There was a lot of doubt when he came back with the Lancers. That everybody thought it was a big PR thing with the Lancers, but he's proven everybody wrong. League MVP last year, a tremendous professional, a credit to the MISL. So it'll be interesting to see if Dougie comes back next year. And then Syracuse, obviously, with Michelle Millwood, the sort of year that he's had, what he's meant to that team. He's helped to bring them over the top now in their first playoffs. Obviously, you got to give Michelle and Tommy Tanner a lot of credit there. And then, on to Baltimore. They're the reigning champions. Until somebody knocks those guys off, they're the reigning champions, and they're peaking just at the right time. They shouldn't have much of an issue with Pennsylvania based upon, the past record of the teams. Pennsylvania, tough expansion season. You give Chris Williams and those guys a lot of credit for sticking in there. Peter Pappas, if Peter's played his last game, what a tremendous competitor. One of the finest goalkeepers in indoor soccer history.
Excellent send-off by the Baltimore Blast after that game on Saturday night as well, on Friday night, which was Pappas did announce that was his final game in the MISL. So an excellent tribute to the Blast after the game to pay tribute to what has been an outstanding career.
Yeah, I mean, they don't get much classier than Peter Pappas. And I'm not just saying it because he's Greek. But no, he's had a tremendous career, a classy individual. So you know what? It's a little bit sad as the regular season ends here. But looking forward to the playoffs. As I said, unlike in years past, I think it's, and I'm saying this with a very sincere heart, it's wide open.
For me, I'm going to go back to the Midwest, and you mentioned Marcial Leite. I'm looking at his running mate, Luan Oliveira. I think he is a key player. He needs to find some creativity, give Ian Bennett a chance, Heverton a chance to score the goals that are going to carry that team to a pair of victories this weekend. On the flip side of that, I'm really interested to see what a guy like Brian Harris does defensively. They were able to shut out Ian Bennett in that game on Sunday, and you don't see that happen very often, which means that their guy, Leo Gibson, does have a 5-point lead in the points race, and Gibson was shut out too, so it'll be interesting to see what those two frontrunners do in their final game of the season. Points race could be at stake. It'll be interesting to see if they get into an individual battle to see who takes home the golden boot.
Knowing both organizations, knowing both coaches, I'm sure that, and it's not going to be in the forefront, but it'll be, on their minds. Everybody's fully aware as to what's at stake individually and obviously team-wise.
Well, we hope you'll join us for all of the action this weekend on YouTube. We hope you'll join us on next Tuesday for a wrap-up of the weekend's action on the MISL Weekend Review. And we hope you'll join us next Thursday as we take a look ahead to the MISL semi-finals. Until then, for Chris, my name's Nicholas. Thanks for joining us.